Secretary of State, thank you for joining me today. I want to start by talking about the Brazil variant. We are hearing that it could be more transmissible. Is the blanket reopening of schools really sensible, given that, even in these areas where that variant has been detected?
Well, what the Prime Minister set out just last week was a very careful roadmap to the reopening, not just of schools but the whole economy, and it's been structured in a way to ensure that his 4 tests, the tests are making sure that the vaccine rollout is going well, the effectiveness of the vaccine, the ability for the NHS to cope, but also looking at new variants, make sure that we're able to open up schools and then eventually open up other parts of the economy, but while making sure that children are safe, teachers are safe, support staff are safe, but also whole communities are safe as well.
So you're confident this is the right thing to do even in those communities where it's been detected?
Yeah, absolutely, and the fact is that test and trace and the medical bodies have been doing a vast amount of testing, and they have detected this small number of cases, and already action was taken in order to be able to deal with it. So it goes to show how the NHS is very much on the front foot with this in terms of dealing with new variants, in order to ensure that we're able to safely open up our schools and we're going to be able to get children back into the classroom, that I think so many people really want to see.
Talking of schools opening safely, you've issued new guidance on mask wearing for secondary pupils within the classroom. There's many saying that this is confusing. Will you make them compulsory before Monday?
Yeah. Well, we are very clear in our guidance. The guidance says that we strongly advise that teachers and students should wear those face masks. We'd certainly encourage all people to do so, but we're not in a position where we're going to be making it mandatory, because it's obviously key to make sure that children are in the classroom benefiting from an education.
Do you think most children will do it though?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm very confident that we've seen children and staff wearing masks in the corridors and other communal areas prior to this change in guidance. But this change has been is driven by the best public health advice that we get from Public Health England, and their advice was that this is another control that we can put in place to control the coronavirus and make sure that children can get into the classroom at the right time, which is from Monday of next week.
Is it a temporary measure?
Well, what we've said is that this is going on till Easter, and we'll obviously look at that afresh then.
Okay. Interested to talk about testing. Here at this school, we've seen they've got a very impressive testing setup, as most secondary schools have now, but you're only expecting schools to do this for 2 weeks, and then the onus will pass to parents at home to make sure their children are doing testing. Do you really think that children will be able to do this at home? There are areas where vaccine take-up, testing take-up has actually been low. How will you make sure children do this?
Well, I think you raise a really important point, and one that I also worried about. I mean, I think that the overwhelming majority of children will take the home test kits home, along with the additional support that's being offered in terms of testing for whole families. It's something that I think so many people will take up, and I think children, having been through the experience of doing the 3 tests over these first 2 weeks in schools, will clearly know what they need to do and how they do it. But we have asked all schools across the secondary schools across the country to keep open a asymptomatic testing station there. So if there are children that they're worried about who haven't been able to have a test or have struggled to be able to do it, they're able to do that within the school and be supervised, because we're wanting to be able to support all children, whatever background they come from, or if they're having some particular challenges, or quite simply if they're forgotten, they're able to do that test quickly at school and get on into their lessons.
Let's talk about catching up, because there has been a lot of discussion about lost learning. When we talk about catch-up summer schools, do you think the children who really need the help the most are likely to go? I've been talking to a number of pupils who say the idea to them of summer school sounds like punishment.
Well, it certainly will not be punishment. It'll be sort of a great opportunity for children to sort of take up the chance not only just to...
But they won't all see it. Going to school in the summer holidays doesn't sound like
and what we're wanting to do is not just a pure focus on academia. What we're wanting to do is to make sure there's other activities that are going on, that it's fun, it's enjoyable. Because I think, I know when I look at my children, they've not just missed out in terms of some of the things that they would get benefit from in terms of class, but also from being with their friends, doing those other activities, whether it's sports and arts. It's just not possible to do at home in the same way. So I'd hope that schools are able to look at a broad range of different activities. Yes, there is elements of academic catch-up that you would love to see happening, but also those other activities that really do make childhood. So we'd like to see a broad range of things that schools are able to do. And where we saw...
Who's going to be teaching them?
Well, this is why we put extra resources in place, an extra £200 million for schools to be able to draw down on. So it's maybe about paying existing staff if they're willing to do it.
Completely burnt out.
Be paying additional staff if they're willing or happy to do it. It's for the ability to have that resources to bring people in order to be able to help and support. We've on top of that got our national tutoring programme, which is an additional resource that we sort of rolled out across the country and really targeting in terms of helping children catch up on learning. But it isn't just about the maths and English. It's about all those other activities. It's about sports. It's about arts and drama. Is how we can get young people really engaged, doing the things that they've been missing out on. And let us make sure that we have a summer of great sporting activity, great arts activity, so much more. I think children will really enjoy it.
I spoke to one head teacher last week who told me that he felt the money would be better spent trying to bridge the digital divide. He was really concerned that when his children, who have eventually managed to get laptops from the Department for Education, when they have to give them back, he said there will be 50% of his students who do not have access to a laptop, do not have proper access to Wi-Fi at home. And he fears that going forward, this digital divide will become even more exacerbated for the disadvantaged. What are you doing to address that problem?
Well, we've done an enormous programme, in fact one of the biggest in the globe, surpassing virtually all other countries around the globe in terms of this mass procurement of laptops and tablets that we've been distributing. At the start of the pandemic, there's 2.9 million laptops and tablets out there in schools. We've already increased that by over 1 million, with another 300,000 going out as we speak. But these are resources that schools will have in the long term. So actually what we want schools to do is to look at actually making sure that those resources are used by children. Actually, if children can get the best use of them at home, well, we want to see them using them at home in order to be able to catch up on learning. And that's why we've given our trust to schools, trust to teachers, to give them this, we've spent hundreds of millions of pounds on this additional resource, and we want to trust them to use it well, but help children. And that will be one of the mechanisms that schools will be able to do. Let those children continue to use those laptops as a resource that those children will be able to benefit from.
I can see we're running out of time. I've got a few other questions I'd like to rattle through.
Of course, certainly. Right. Sorry.
Will exams go ahead as normal in 2022?
Yes, we're very much planning exams to go ahead in 2022. You'll probably have also seen in the announcement that we made just last week is the fact that we'll be also holding an autumn series of exams for those children who don't feel as if the results that they got was necessarily a fair reflection of their work.
When do you anticipate a return to more normal schooling? I'm talking assemblies, playtimes, sports days, school trips.
Well, we don't want to sort of prejudge this. We want to get all the children back on the, week commencing the 8th of March. But when the science and the health advice allows, we want schools to return back to as much normality as possible. We'd certainly be wanting to see that this year, but at the moment we have the advice that that's something that we can do, we'll certainly be doing it at the earliest moment.
Vaccinations for teachers, this is still a live issue, and I know many teachers have been disappointed that they don't feel they've had your support on this. Is this fight over in your mind, do you think?
Well, what we want to see is we've already had tens of thousands of teachers who will have already received vaccination as part of that rollout, and of course it's not just teachers, it's support staff as well. What we want is everyone getting the vaccination at the earliest possible moment. We want to see that swiftly, and the interim advice that has come from the JCVI, the independent body looking at this, is the quickest way to get everyone vaccinated by age range. That's an interim report. They're looking at further details on that, but we'll obviously await for the final conclusions of their report before a decision is made.
Finally, Secretary of State, you say you trust the teachers to grade the pupils this year, and I have to say many teachers, many heads that I've spoken to wouldn't mark you very highly. They talk about U-turns, they talk about muddled guidance, they talk about having to make their own decisions in isolation. How do you rate your own performance over the last year?
Well, at every stage, we've been dealing with a global pandemic where, if we'd been speaking in this school in just very early December of just last year, we wouldn't have known about the new variant or the impact that would have had on our schooling. And at every stage, we've always aimed, and we've done this right across government, to act with speed and to be able to get guidance and support out to schools as quickly as possible. You've seen £1.7 billion be made available to support schools in terms of catching up. We've put additional resource, additional help there. This is why we're rolling out this mass testing programme. But my passion has always been for education, to actually make sure that we get the very best for children. And I know the best thing for children is to be back in the classroom, and that's what's sort of been driving me to make sure that children are able to get back into the classroom at the earliest possible moment, to be with their friends, to be with their teachers, and get the very best that every school offers.
No more U-turns then? Better guidance for teachers, because they are saying that this is not what they've received?
Well, we've made sure that all the guidance went out as pretty much as soon as the Prime Minister sat down after his announcement in terms of the roadmap. We always aim to give the very best guidance, but we have been operating in a global pandemic, and I'm sure that even yourself probably wouldn't have been able to have predicted every single turn of this pandemic, and I'm afraid that we've all had to deal with an enormous challenge over something that none of us, if we'd been sat just after the general election in 2019, ever been able to predict as to the impact it would have had. But we're putting children first. This is why the Prime Minister and myself have been consistent in saying education is our national priority. Schools would always be the last to close, first to reopen. That's what we're doing. We're prioritising them over all of our aspects of the economy, because we know how important it is for all children, and that's what we're delivering on.
Okay, Secretary of State, thank you.
Thank you for having me.